Hi guys! Today I'm really excited to give you my spoiler-free review of Season 1 of Netflix's Sweet Tooth. Now this show is based on the DC comic book that goes really dark. So does the Netflix show get that dark? And how even is it? So let's talk about it. I'm excited to give you this review. But before we dive into it, if it's your first time here, I'd love it if you'd take 1 second, hit that subscribe button, and if you enjoy the content, go ahead and hit that notification bell. All right, let's talk about Sweet Tooth. Hey, Tessa from Mama's Geeky here. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel. Okay, so I have to admit, going into the show, I had not yet read the comics. However, after finishing up Season 1, I have dived a little bit into them, and they do get very dark. Now, there's some small differences between the comic and the show. In the show, Sweet Tooth is a bit younger than he is in the comic book, and it seems like the comic book does get quite a deal darker than the Netflix show does, at least so far with Season 1. And again, I'm not that far into the comics either, so maybe it gets a little brighter. I'm not really sure. But what I do like about the show is how dark and gritty that it gets. Now, Netflix has rated this TV-15, but if I'm being totally honest, after watching the first season, it is something I will allow my 9, almost 10-year-old daughter to watch. I think she'll really enjoy it, and I think it has a lot of good messages and morals in about nature and things of that sort. Of course, we get to see the humans go very dark in this show. Here's the basis of it, the gist, right? The synopsis, so to speak. It's not spoilery, don't worry. Everything's explained in the first few minutes of episode 1. But basically, there is a virus that has killed quite a bit of humans called the Sick. And then right around the same time that the Sick started, every single baby has been born as a human-animal hybrid. So no human babies are being born, none. Every single one is being born as a hybrid. And so at the beginning, I mean, we're really not sure, are the Sick and the hybrid babies related? Are they not related? Did one cause the other? Which one came first? You know, the chicken and the egg? Like, what happened here, right? So as it gets towards the end of the season, we get a little bit of answers, but really we end up with more questions, and it ends on a cliffhanger that has me begging for Season 2. Now, there's a lot of things to love about this show. Like I said, I really enjoy that it gets into that dark and gritty, because I'm a fan of that stuff. If you didn't know that already, welcome to my channel. You'll learn this pretty quickly. There's some blood. There's not a whole ton of gore, which I think is maybe because they're trying to keep it towards that TV-15 rating. It feels like they could have definitely gone a bit darker, a bit bloodier, and a bit more gore-filled. But they stayed away from that. Well, a little bit. It teeters on the edge sometimes. But basically now what humans are doing is they are hunting down these hybrid kids. They don't want them to live. Well, there is this adorable hybrid deer boy. His name is Sweet Tooth. Well, his name is Gus, but he's lovingly called Sweet Tooth because he has a sweet tooth. I mean, he literally drinks maple syrup. It's crazy. And he loves candy. He's got quite the sweet tooth, hence the name Sweet Tooth. And he ends up, he's like isolated all alone in the woods. Things happen, and he ends up teaming up with this guy. And listen, he's basically, I'm trying to not give spoilers, he follows him around quite a bit, okay? He's maybe not wanted at the beginning, but he teams up with him, and he just kind of, he wants to go to Colorado for a reason. I don't know that I want to tell you guys why, because eventually you'll figure it out, but he wants to get there, right? So he's following this guy there, and they make quite a team. He meets these other people along the way. I mean, there's all these interesting characters that come in and out of Sweet Tooth's life. That's something I really enjoyed about it. Now, it's 8 episodes. They're about 50 minutes long, and so it's a pretty quick binge, and it's definitely worth watching. One thing I really love about this is Sweet Tooth's ears are done so well. They do such a good job of showing his emotions, right? So if he's like scared or sad, they go down. If he's happy, they perk up. And when he's excited, they like wiggle all around and he can hardly control them. It's stuff like that is really fun, and it's actually done really well. And it looks very pretty. Speaking of looking pretty, the whole show looks very pretty. The nature side of it, right? With the humans being gone, nature has been able to thrive. It takes over cities, okay? You know, a lot of times we see that stuff in post-apocalyptic world type shows, and that is what we see here with, you know, vines and vegetation just growing all over the buildings. It's absolutely beautiful. Of course, animals are able to thrive, so there's literally herds of wild animals. There's one moment where some people are on a train, and you look out the train and you see elephants and giraffes, and this is just like in like out in a field. Like it's crazy, like in the United States, right? In the Colorado area. It's crazy to see, but it's so beautiful. Now, there is one issue I have. However, I need to preface it by saying that the press screeners that were given said that is not complete VFX. So it is not completely finished, which I'm hoping they do tidy up before they release, because one of my biggest issues with this is some of the effects are just not doing it. Some of the CGI is just not doing it. There's a little gopher boy who it needs a little bit of refining, and he'll look a lot better. He looks a little ridiculous in my opinion, and it I would giggle every time I saw him, which is not really the intent. However, he's a super fun character and I really like him. It's just like, whoa, he was not pulled off well, and hopefully they fix that in post. I'm sure they will. Like it said, it made a mark made a point, I should say, to specifically say the VFX are not finished. Also, sometimes, like one time there's a herd of deer running and they don't really look great. So stuff like that can be very easily cleaned up, and hopefully it does. The pacing is done pretty well. Every once in a while you're pulled out of something, because there is another side story. There's Dr. Singh, and he's a doctor, and he's really trying to find a cure. His wife has the sick, so he's trying to help her. And so sometimes when they bounce back and forth, you're kind of like, oh, but I wonder what this person's doing, and I wonder what that person's doing. And that's just because you're invested in the story and you're interested in it. And of course, they need to space it out. That storyline is much darker than Sweet Tooth's storyline. Still, both of them are great. All of the characters are great. And the acting is really, really good. I mean, there's a significant amount of kid actors in this show, and sometimes kid actors, like, let's face it, it's hit or miss, right? Sometimes they're way too over the top. Sometimes they just don't work. But you know what? Everyone in this show works. Like I said, my biggest issue is those VFX, which hopefully are going to be cleaned up before final release. I guess we will see soon, because Sweet Tooth does hit Netflix on June 4th. But other than that, I wish they had gone a little darker. But I do love the overall message of nature, right? Humans are gone. Nature gets to thrive. Like, come on here. I hate the way they left it on a cliffhanger, but I understand why they're doing that. There better be a season 2. If there's not a season 2, that's awful that we just had to sit and end with this. I will say it got me very interested in picking up the comic books, which is great as well. I mean, overall, it's a good story. The pacing is pretty decent. There are some issues here and there are some moments throughout that get a little slow or seem a little off, or you're like, why did you spend so long on this particular moment when we could have had so much more of something else? And I don't want to dive too deep into that, because I do not want to give spoilers, as they do tend to come in episodes 6 and 7. However, listen, Sweet Tooth is a lot of fun. If you know the comics, you're probably really going to enjoy this. You might wish it's a little bit darker. If you don't know the comics, don't worry. I didn't know the comics going into it, but now it has really interested me in picking them up and reading them, and I'm getting into them, and I'm excited to see where Sweet Tooth's story goes. If you've already seen Sweet Tooth by the time you get to this review, let me know what you think down below in the comments, or if you've read the comics, let me know your thoughts. What are you hoping they include? What are you most looking forward to? Be sure to give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. You can follow me over on Instagram and Twitter. I'm at Mama's Geeky over there. MAMASGEEKY. Thanks for taking the time to watch this, guys. I'll see you next time. Thank you so much to all of my monetary supporters, my members here on YouTube, as well as my patrons. If you haven't joined yet, please consider doing so. We have some really awesome perks, including a monthly Zoom meeting where we get to talk face to face. Thank you again to everyone who supports me.